بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everyone, Ramadan Mubarak to you all. Very happy to be here with you guys again. Another podcast, and I have a new guest today with brother Steve, with Sheikh Mustafa. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you doing, Sheikh?
Doing fine.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ramadan Mubarak to you.
Trying to dodge the rain over here. I don't know. We get some lightning. And this is Central Florida, so lots of lightning.
Okay. How is Ramadan going on with you, akhi?
Doing good.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. So I just want to say assalamu alaikum to everyone in the chat. If you guys can hear us, please give us a thumbs up so we can get going, inshallah. So what should I call you? Brother Steve, Sheikh Steve, Brother Mustafa, Sheikh Mustafa? What do we refer to you as?
I guess anything will work, you know. It's I'm not really fussy. It's I came up with Sheikh Mustafa. That's what I do on my channel, but
I like it. MashaAllah. By the way, what's your channel for everybody so they can know if we want to reach you or watch your content?
Yeah, it's Sheikh Mustafa. If you look up that right there, you can go to probably the introduction video, and I really call it I call it Muslim Boot Camp, or
okay,
simply Boot Camp, because what I'm trying to do there with that channel is trying to better the relations between Muslims and Christians, basically.
MashaAllah, very good.
Yeah.
So, Sheikh Mustafa, let's get started, inshallah, with a little introduction of yourself. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And how did you become what you became before you found Islam? Bismillah.
All righty. I grew up in Upper Michigan. That's the trademark right here. It's a little town, a small town in Upper Michigan. And I don't think there was 11,000 people, but just across the bridge, there was another 12 or 15,000 in Wisconsin. So the river separated the two cities. I had a good childhood. I mean, I grew up, my dad was from a working family, a blue-collar family. We weren't really wealthy, but my dad welded and made a good living back then, you know. As a boy, I remember being taken to the church all the time, and that was a Catholic church because there were very few evangelical or Baptists, a few Methodist churches up there and a couple Lutheran, but mostly all Catholic. And I went to Catholic school for a while when I was a boy, so I was well versed in Catholicism back then, and practiced, as best I could. And that's the way I came up. That lasted probably until I went into the military at 17. That's when I left the little town, and went to the big town, Milwaukee, to be inducted into the military. And from then on, it was... I never really went back for many years. I didn't go back really until about 2000, and then I went back again in 2010. And things are so different when you go back. I mean, you don't know anybody, you don't recognize the place hardly. But the church that I attended when I was a boy was a Catholic church, like I said, but it was a French church, because back then you had 4 or 5 churches and within a couple of block radius.
Wow.
They were all Catholic churches. And you would have them for the Germans, you'd have them for the French, and the Anglos would have another one, and you went to your church. That was your church, you know what I'm saying? My mother happened to be French from Canada, so that's where we went. That's where I was baptized and took my first communion, and later on confirmation,
Interesting. So you said when you went to military, like around what age? Is that when you were teens or?
I was 17 when I entered the military. Yeah, my parents had a sign for me, and back then you could take a 2-year program. You could choose either travel or the type of job you wanted to do, and I took radio teletype. So I didn't travel but a couple places, like Fort Jackson and the Carolinas, and then in Georgia, and that was it. So it was kind of interesting, it's, you are what your past is what your past is, it kind of directs what you are today.
True.
You know, and I noticed that with a lot of people. You know, people had a bad life previously, they generally carry on that same thing. And I don't know, I just enjoyed my life up there. I like to hunt, I like to fish. Now that I'm retired, I'm thinking really seriously about going back up to Upper Michigan. You know, it's
just don't go in the winter.
Yeah, the cold. That's the thing. The cold is the big one.
Yeah. So, all right. So you would identify earlier in your life as a Catholic, or was it as a Baptist?
It was a Catholic. I was a Catholic. Born and raised a Catholic.
Okay. And how did you end up becoming a Baptist pastor? Could you tell us what led you, what steps in your life that had maybe contributed into developing, young Steve to this field?
Right. Well, when I got out of the Army, I realized that I didn't have any skills to do anything. I didn't have a skill that was going to earn me a living. So I said, well, I'll go back to school, and I went to college. And as I was taking some classes in college, there was a class presented to me. It was the life of Jesus, the life of Christ. I think that's what it was called. I took that class, and it was taught by a Southern Baptist minister of one of the local churches. And we got to be real good friends. We bonded, and we talked about a lot of things. And I wound up going to his church, and I wound up, accepting. You didn't know any better, but I accepted Christ, as my personal Lord and Savior, which I never done as a Catholic. That was a different twist on the whole situation. So, and from then on, I got really interested in becoming a pastor, and I started to study for it. And that's what my goals were in college. I was doing everything to get the prerequisites down so I could go off to seminary and, become a pastor and pastor a church. And this was a dream,
Yeah. So would you say that's something that young people look for? When I say young, I mean, with their teens, 20s, 30s, even sometimes in early 40s, people look for to fill some sort of gap. Could be like emotional, like, you got attached to Christ. Because I had a lot of people, like earlier today, I was just for a little while, I was attending Dr. Urban's meeting in a Zoom meeting, and someone said that he felt this attachment to the person of Christ, and I thought he was a really good person, and that led me back to Christianity. That was his story for a few seconds that he mentioned. Would you say there is that leads a lot of people to get into the idea of becoming religious? Or
I noticed a lot of people that have either drug or alcohol abuse situation. I know a little bit about that because my first ministry was in a transitional home. And I noticed that a lot of the people that were there, that was the main reason, to the dependency. They replaced the dependency with their religion, which was, Christ-centered. Of course, it was Christian.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these people were young people. I mean, I didn't see anybody in that transitional home that was, past 35 or 40. So it's mostly all young people, and that's what they do. I know in my life, that's what I was doing. I was looking for something because I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't satisfied with Catholicism. It didn't fill the void in me, and I wanted to read the Bible. We never hardly read the Bible. Catholics don't read the Bible very much. I mean, the Bible's read to us throughout the liturgical year from the pulpit. But as far as picking one up and studying it, I never did that. I didn't do that. I didn't start doing that until I became Baptist.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. You say that the statement you made, the Catholics don't really read the Bible. Now, of course, someone who's Catholic is watching this and be like, "No, what are you talking about? I read some of the Bible." Yeah, but it's not probably what you mean. You mean like the detailed, in-depth study of the Holy Book, Absolutely. And the exegesis of these scholars and all. That's interesting you said that because we do have conversation with people, whether they're Catholic or Orthodox or Protestant, and I noticed this idea. You bring up a verse, and some people look at you like you have three heads. Like it's right there. It's right in the Bible. Just to be fair, of course, there are some Muslims that don't know a lot about the Quran. But I'm talking about people that are involved in polemics and comparative religion. But so, okay, this is interesting. Now you grew up as a Catholic, you end up studying, you wanted to become a pastor. So you finish your studies, and then what? You joined the church, some sort of.
Well, I joined the church before I finished my studies. I became Baptist from that friend that I met in school, that teacher, that professor, and started going to his church. And I don't know, the church was just riddled with problems. I mean, the people were uncontrollable. It seemed like after a few years, pastors in the pulpit, especially if you're Southern Baptist, you got to be really exceptional to stay in the pulpit, because after a couple of years, they want to change. They want a different one. You know, they heard all your messages. They got tired of looking at you. I don't know what the situation, but that's the way he was. You know, they wanted to get rid of him. So we had left him and myself and a small group of people, and we went and started another church in a more affluent area that was by a golf course and by a housing project that was a pretty nice project. And that church really took off. And he was secure in that until he retired. But being a pastor is a hard way to go. And he told me one thing before I got licensed and ordained. He said, Steve, if you can do anything else, do it. He said, don't become a pastor. Now that was real encouraging, because here I got all this time and all this money invested, and I'm thinking about becoming a pastor. And he said, don't become one, but I did it anyway. And I guess, life is all a bunch of experiences put together, and it was for a reason. I'm sure it's for a reason.
Absolutely. I believe that as well. So now up until this point, anything about Islam? What do you know about Islam? Anything about Islam? What have you heard about Islam?
At that point, I knew nothing, zero. The only thing I knew about Islam back in those days was what I picked up off of maybe TV, or maybe we had some conflicts with some Islamic countries, and they always are portrayed in a negative light. It's never nothing positive. It's Islamic terrorists or whatever. That's all I knew, and that's what I thought. I thought those countries were just loaded with people like that. That wasn't until later that I started meeting a few people that, in fact, in the building I live in an apartment complex, and it's a pretty good gated complex. And I got a Muslim brother that's up on the third floor, and I got to talking to him, and pretty much he's the one that before I became a Muslim, I started talking to him, and then I started to study. He's from Egypt, by the way. I think he's from Cairo or somewhere, but real good fella. And that's where I took off from there, and just left the Baptist. I just didn't want any of that trouble. I just got tired of it. Before I did that, though, I started off, and I needed support. I needed work, and I was deeply in debt because school cost me over $100,000, and not all of that was loans or grants or
financial aid.
I had to pay these bills,
Yeah.
So I started driving a truck. That's why I like the thumbnail you chose with the highway. That's where I spent my life.
Interesting. Wow, look at that.
Yeah,
I randomly put it as a road journey to Islam, but
it was a journey. It's
wow. So
I started that journey, but I'm still continuing into it. I see the journey is getting better and better. You know what I mean? So,
mashallah. You told me you took your shahada what year again?
Yeah, it was in 2018. It was about in August in 2018.
So about 3 years ago. Wow, mashallah. Okay. So at that time, from 3 years ago, 2018, going all the way back when you started as, a pastor, and you said you knew nothing about Islam except what you saw on TV, just
right.
a bad portrayal, negativity that you hear about Islam, obviously, in the media. Okay, so now you're working, and you're a pastor, you're active. What stuff has happened into your life? What made a pastor, an American Baptist pastor, to even investigate Islam, to even think about it? Was it something that has to do with Christianity? That any doubts, any questions you had while you being a pastor? What happened?
Yeah, there were plenty of doubts. I mean, when I talked about Catholics, they don't read the Bible, but Baptists thoroughly read the Bible and study, and they can quote you more verses and more chapters and than you can even imagine. So, wow. It was something that I started to look at some of these things that just didn't add up, and I'm not just talking about the Trinity. I knew the Trinity didn't add up, but there were other things. There were discrepancies. There were contradictions. There were various variant accounts of what happened. And I started to question these things. I said, "Is this authentic?" And then I started reading in the Old Testament as I took some classes in Old Testament, and the prophets. Some of the prophets are really portrayed in a bad, negative light. Like they're reprobates or something. You know what I'm saying? Pawning your wife off as your sister to a king, and it's just I'm gonna do a video on this. All these things added up, and I just couldn't take it. And you don't dare tell somebody about it if you're a pastor, because if you want to leave, that would be the thing to do, because they would make sure that you were voted out the next Monday after Sunday.
Wow.
So you can't tell anybody that. You can tell maybe some of your close friends that, and I think I did, but I think what they do is they just smile, and it's denial. They know, and they know the same thing, but they're denying it because they want to hang on to their positions. They want to hang on to their faith, and they have nowhere to go. If you're kind of left out in the wind. And there was a period of time when I knew that I couldn't be Baptist anymore. I knew that, but I also knew where would I go? What would I do? So that's when I really started looking, and I got real lucky. I got guided by some individuals that were pretty good, and of course, Allah has a lot to do with where you go and how you get there, if you'll just stop and listen. And I believe I'm guided every day. I look for guidance. I look to improve my deen. I look to, further my ability to teach and my ability to understand Islam. And by doing so, I think I got a little better. So that's pretty much where I went up to that point.
So there are questions. People ask questions in the church.
Okay.
But like you said, there's this sort of just smirk or smile or just denial or like, yeah, but we got to hold on to our positions.
Right.
It's amazing that people don't compare this life to the hereafter. I mean, if you're upon batil, upon falsehood, and you still hold into it, that just shows me that to begin with, they're not solid in what they believe in. The idea of believing in God, it's not really there as strong as it should be. Because if that's strong, if you're a truth seeker, then no worldly thing should hold you from embracing the truth. So now you have these questions are around you. You said the Trinity never made sense to you, right? The idea of Jesus. What about the idea of divinity of Jesus? Like how'd you deal with that before Islam? Was that something normal?
Divine Christ? Yeah. I never could swallow that one, because you see, it's the principal foundation of the Trinity as well. Who Christ is. You couldn't have a Trinity without the divine Christ. But making him God, I never seen that in my Bible. You could read it up and down. It's not implicitly taught. And all the theologians will say that. I don't care what book you pick up on theology. You're never going to see any of them say that, Jesus taught that he was God, or even said that he was God. Now, people had made some claims later on, and it's once again, you can write what you want, doesn't make it true. You know what I'm saying? Jesus never said he was God. And
when did you find out? When did you adopt this idea that your point, you standing up here that you're saying, I know Jesus is not God? Were you still a pastor?
I was believing, it was in my mind back then, but I never said it out. I never spoke it.
But you believed it. You believe deep inside. You were
I was moving in that direction. I tell you, because I'm seeing things that don't add up. 1 and 1 and 1 don't make 1. So the things don't add up.
Yeah. Or 1 and 1 and 1 don't make 1.
That's right.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. So a pastor, active, people reach out to you, ask you questions. They're supposed to learn from you. Yeah, you're saying that this whole idea, this whole concept of Jesus being God or 3 in 1 does not make really sense to you. But there are other factors, external factors, if you will, that held you from, I guess, reaching out or seeking truth to find something else. Now, at this point, what was your first contact with Islam when you realized that I need to know this religion? What led you to even want to investigate Islam? Why not, I don't know, being a Mormon or Judaism or something? Why Islam?
I think dialoguing with a friend of mine that lives in the apartment building. The neighbor, yeah. He became a friend and we became brothers, after I took the Shahada. But dialoguing with him, it's a funny thing. You look for people that are Muslim and you think, well, they got all the answers. A lot of them don't have all the answers. A lot of them are not really as learned as Bilal Phillips, or somebody like that. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, they can't answer certain things for you. And, but that dialogue, that was important to me. And that guiding, that leading, that friendship, that was filling the void in here, it was filling that void.
You said friendship. That's important because I really want to. This is actually an excellent point that you brought up. Jazakallah khair for that. You said it was important to you. What even made your receptors available? Your ears open to hear this message, little before accepting it, just to hear it. One, you were thirsty for knowledge. You want to know. You want to know what's out there. You were sincere. That's 2. Right. 3, you found somebody who you connected with. So before even knowing what Islam is about, the person was important that you met. The trust had to be there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that in terms of the da'wah, inviting to Islam? How important is the idea of connecting with other individuals from different faiths, please?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, if you can't connect with somebody, you're going to have no success with da'wah because it's just not going to happen for you. You connect in various ways. Friendship is not the only way. I watched this individual, and through his life, he was giving dawah. I was watching what he was doing. And that's the reason why I wanted to start my channel, and I wanted to start this boot camp, because you have to know what a Christian believes if you're going to reach a Christian. You have to know. You can't go in there and be all smug and we're Muslims, we follow Islam, and the Quran is the supreme book, and your book has got errors, and you start that way and you're not going to go anywhere. You got to build up a relationship with individuals, and that's very important. That's almost precedent. What I noticed when I was a Christian, and we did a lot of this, we did a lot of witnessing. We called it witnessing of the faith, and we would go to people's houses, and there were individuals that were really, really aggressive. And I thought to myself, if we can just get out of the house and leave the door open so we can come back, we did good. Not that they make a commitment then, or they accept Christ as their Lord and Savior at that minute, but if we could just come back, we did good. So it's the same thing. Whatever faith you're going to present, whether it's Islam or whatever, you got to leave the door open, and you gotta practice dawah through your life. I mean, they're watching you. They're watching you at work, right? You can't go to work. If they know you're a Muslim, they're watching you. They're watching what you're saying. They're watching if you're praying. They're watching what you're eating, your lifestyle after work. They know it all, And if it's not good, if you're not following the deen the way you should be, you're going to be in trouble trying to reach anyone. So, and this is the reason why, like I said, I wanted to start the channel so people could understand the relationship, let's face it, between Muslims and Christians is strained at best. And we get a president or we get politicians in office that'll even strain it more. And they'll say things. And these things, are just dividing. It's causing separation. One of the biggest things, and you talk about friendship, is when I went to the mosque. It was a small little masjid. It was right by the hospital, about a block away from the hospital, and it was mostly doctors and techs and stuff like that. Of course, there was a variety, of people, but they would come there on their breaks, and pray. And everyone welcomed me so much. I was in the back and I was just learning how to pray, and I was sitting in a chair in the back and I was kind of watching everything, And they would ask me, come on up. And I said, I don't know how to pray. Well, just come on up and watch what we do and, listen to what we do. And yeah, they were so friendly. And it was just amazing on how they welcomed me in there. And, I don't look like I came from North Africa or something, so or India. I just don't, I look like the traditional redneck, you know what I'm saying? I had a pretty good beard going, and I looked like I just stepped off of the stage of Duck Dynasty, So, but still, they welcomed me in such a way that it made me want to come back, and it made me want to continue to learn, as much as I could. There's one thing with Islam; it's a way of life. And you continue down this way of life, and you have to learn. You have to seek knowledge more and more and more and more. And it's there for you. I mean, I could never go through all the hadith. If I read all the time, at my age, you're selective. And a lot of things kind of go through your head a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You can remember things from the past, but you got this problem with trying to learn a whole lot of things that are new. Trying to teach an old dog new tricks. You heard that saying. And that's where I'm at. But I'm learning. And I spent a year in IOU with Bilal Phillips. And I actually learned my Islam under a sheikh, an imam in Mineola, Florida. I went for about a year there, and I studied basic Islam, and that wasn't enough. And he wasn't going to go any farther because the class just separated some kind of way. So that's when I went with IOU, and I'm thinking about going back and working on a degree there. So
interesting. Wow, mashallah. I wanted to ask you this actually for a while, but I'm glad someone mentioned that in the chat. Oftentimes when I speak to people from different faiths, usually Christians, and they hear about a revert story, someone who became Muslim, left Christianity, there is this answer. It's almost like an automatic answer, and you just press a button and it pops out without even thinking, oh, he was never Christian to begin with.
Yeah.
Have you heard that before?
Oh, yeah.
So now we're not talking to a regular someone, Mr. Christian walking in the street. This is a former Baptist pastor. Now, what do you say to these people that say, oh, he was never a Christian?
Yeah, I see. It's not for me to decide. You know what I'm saying? Whatever he does is between him and God, his God and Allah. It's not for me to take and look at somebody's life and judge that person. No, that's what I always said. And even when I pastored a church, I had about 6 deacons, and they were mostly family members of the parishioners of the church. And I would always wonder, by the way some of the people acted, that if they were really saved or not. Pulling knives on one another in a deacon's meeting. You know what I'm saying? Two brothers, fighting like that. I mean, this is where they were at. Now, what we used to say is they could be Christian, but they just were not spiritually mature. They just never matured. I think, you can be a Muslim. I think it's the same thing, pretty much, and not spiritually mature. You can be at one level, and you're not doing all your prayers a day. You may do a few. You're not doing all the study that you could do. You don't know your faith that well enough to teach it. If you don't know it well enough to teach it, you don't know it well enough to present dawah to anyone. And that's a fact. See, that's my goal. My goal is to help individuals. And once I get done with the Christianity aspect on my channel, I'm going to go into some of the Islamic teachings for the Christians, so the Christians can understand what their brothers in Islam believe.
SubhanAllah. May Allah bless you and reward you for your intentions and give you strength, inshallah, to bring even more people to the haqq, to the truth. So I wanted to ask you, okay, what happened in that meeting? I'm really interested now to know. What did he say in this meeting?
They started arguing. They started arguing over something, usually on Sunday.
No, I'm talking about the deacons. I'm talking about your neighbor. Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, my neighbor.
I asked you. I meant your third floor neighbor. When you said you were really struck by his personality, the way he was talking to you. But what did he say? Was that your first contact with understanding the fundamentals of Islam, or you knew a little bit about it from before? Like Muslims believe in Jesus, they believe in Allah. Was Allah some moon god thing to you? What happened in that meeting? What changed?
I really, really drew a blank slate because I didn't know anything at all about Islam. Nothing. When I met this friend of mine, we started talking. And, he would tell me about some of the basic things of Islam. And that's how I started, little at a time, over the duration of months, not right away. Over the duration of months, then I would get online and I would go to various YouTube channels, or, and I would Google things, Sheikh Estes and a bunch of different ones. I would Google these and listen to what they had to say. And all the time I'm learning, because I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. And what little bit I did know was from the news that you see on TV, and it wasn't good. It didn't take very long after I started talking to the friend, the neighbor upstairs, that I started to realize, no, they're wrong. You know what I'm saying? Islam is not what they're portraying it to be. It could be. It could. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there are problems. And there's problems in the East. There's so many sects of Muslims. There's fundamentalist Muslims. I think some of the verses in the Quran they translate them so literally that they're still trying to impose that type of translation today. And I think myself that's a mistake. Jihad, was the big one. That's the big one, right? You hear of guys crashing planes or whatever it is, but that's what you think. When you think of jihad, that's what you think when you don't know anything. But, I learned that it's just a simple daily struggle too. And we all are involved in jihad. Every one of us. We got to struggle every day. Now, some of the brothers, I think, are struggling a whole lot less than some of the sisters because, we can walk in the street and I'm just going to look like an old hillbilly, right? Unless I'm wearing a thobe like I'm wearing now. But the sisters are wearing hijabs. And the first thing people are looking at that and they're judging them. And they're judging them by what they believe the news is presenting. And it's not good. And they have a lot of trouble. The sisters, I have to give them credit. I mean, they're out there and they're looking like a Muslim. I mean, they're dressed like a Muslim.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our sisters. I mean.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there that don't like Muslims, would laugh and scorn them, in the street. It's the same thing as back in biblical times. You know what I'm saying? People mocked you, and the more I think the more you're on the right path, the more you're going to get mocked. I believe that.
Wasn't Jesus mocked?
Yeah.
Prophet Muhammad mocked? Was all the prophets went through the same thing?
Yeah, and look who mocked him. You know what I'm saying? The people accepted more or less what he said, a lot of them, up to a certain point, because they thought he was the Messiah. But the religious ones, those were the ones that mocked him, Those were the ones he always had the confrontations with. Now, the Bible, it's something. I say the Bible contains the Word of God. Is it the Word of God, word for word? No, I think you're going to be in trouble if you follow that path. And because there's a lot of crazy things in there that are obviously somebody added. And there are verses that even they admit to adding, you know what I'm saying? Like the pericope adultery, that's been added. Where they come to Jesus, they bring the woman and the adultery, the couple, and they're going to stone them, and he says, whoever's without sin, they let the guy go, but the woman they still had hold of, and they, whoever is without sin cast the first stone. I thought it was kind of interesting. Bart Ehrman said, and then all of a sudden a stone came whipping over there and hit her, and he said, "Mom, what are you doing?" Jesus' mother is supposed to be sinless, you see. So
that's funny.
Yeah, but anyway, I just have trouble with that. I know a lot of people on my Facebook. I don't have a lot of friends on there. I'm pretty selective, and and when you get my age, a lot of your friends have passed away anyway, or your school chums you don't meet, you don't keep up with them, and they're gone. You don't get around when you work a job like I did, and make a lot of friends. So, so most of my friends are old friends that are Christian. So, and they've been watching my videos. I mean, they're the ones that are watching my videos right now. I don't have the Muslims viewing them because I'm not in a Muslim forum that that they know that they're there. And so the Christian friends I have are watching them, and they're not really saying anything, but a lot of them I see likes, Say I got about 60 some views on before you become a Muslim, and I got like 5 likes on that. You know what I'm saying? And these are from Christians that are liking it.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting, I thought. So there's an open door there. And somebody needs to, not only myself, there's a lot of room for other people to go through that door and try to, say, hey, we're not all crazy, We don't have dynamite tied on ourselves, and we don't have AK-47s in the trunk of our car, We're people just like you, and we're worshiping Allah, our God, in the way that we see is the best way. And
SubhanAllah. Would you say that most people out there that reject Islam or make bad comments of Islam, aside from the fact that they're misinformed from the media, would you just say that they just don't know what Islam is? They don't know the basic principles of Islam? Is this out of ignorance about the deen, or is it just mainly people that have this hatred, just don't want to deal with anything that talks about the fact that Jesus is not God or something like that?
It's a combination of things. Not only is it the media, but if you go in South Alabama and you're black, you got a problem. And that's still today. I mean, I lived in Alabama. I lived in Gulf Shores, Alabama, which is predominantly white because it's mostly tourists. But if you were black and you went down to the beach down there, all eyes are on you. And
that's insane to hear. That's
yeah, it is.
21, and people look at you because you're a different color.
Absolutely.
Mind-boggling.
Absolutely. And if you're wearing a hijab and you're driving through Alabama, I guarantee you're going to get stopped. And there's going to be 10 cop cars there. And they're going to search everything because they're thinking you're up to something.
Even cops?
It's them Muslims are up to something,
But these are cops. I mean, shouldn't they be at least?
Cops would be the same thing. There's no difference between the cops and the good old boys over there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It'd be the same thing. It's sad to say that these things still exist in 2021. Like you said, we still have a problem. And
so now, if Jesus, peace be upon him, is driving in the highway or somewhere in Alabama with his blessed, beloved mother, Mary, with the cover, you telling me they would get pulled over?
Oh, absolutely. Probably they would. Before they got very far, if they seen him in the car, they would pull him over and ask him what he's doing. They don't really need a reason. I mean, they can, there's 100 different things. We're doing a traffic check. We're doing all kinds. They can pull you over for any reason if they want to, not necessarily a violation.
Yeah.
So they would just want to see what's going on in there, and if you're smuggling somebody, or is the car loaded with fertilizer and dynamite, or what the deal is. You know what I'm saying?
This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. Absolutely. And I know a lot of brothers will drive down from Michigan through Tennessee and get stopped. Get stopped by the Tennessee law down there. And I'm not saying they're all bad. No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah. No.
Everyone in Alabama is not bad, and everyone in Alabama doesn't believe that, or Tennessee, or any other state. But these are the strongholds. These are the ones that are holding out probably the longest. I don't think there's too much of a problem with racism in Michigan as much as what there was, especially in Lower Michigan, because Lower Michigan has one of the highest percentages of Muslims in the country, just about. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember how many hundreds of thousands I heard are living in Michigan now, in Lower Michigan. And
these are first, second generations too, Americans.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Wow, it's amazing. So now you're talking to your neighbor. I'm assuming there were a few meetings, right, back and forth, not just one, obviously.
Well, every day. I ride my bicycle out here, so every day I would see him when he would come back from work. And
you guys talk for a little bit.
Yeah.
At what point during your discussion with him, you decided? I mean, I'm sure it's not like a button that you press and then, I'm Muslim now. It's a buildup of a lot of things, right? And every revert has a great story, and they can't summarize it in an hour or two. It's a journey. It is a journey. So obviously, we're not expecting you to go through all this now. But at what point during your discussion with him where you told yourself, all right, you know what? Now I'm started get into this. Like I need to take this seriously because I'm actually considering this. What argument?
Okay, I tell you what happened. In 2016, I went through a divorce. So I was pretty devastated, and the mindset was that I needed something to fill the hole that, was the void that was left. I wound up with my 3 sons, caring for them, and I had my daughter for a while until the judge had until the divorce was final, and he absolutely ruled that she should live. My daughter would live with her mother and go to school in another part of Florida. It's not far from here.
My Allah protect her.
So I worry about what she's learning because that's always on my mind. But anyway, I was going through this thing and I needed something, and I started the investigation. I was doing the talk, trying to probe him to find out, on different things about Islam. And he invited me. He said, "Why don't you come to the masjid?" And I just kind of showed up. It was a strange thing for a Baptist pastor because we're used to going on Wednesdays and Sundays. And here I went to the masjid and they only have a prayer on Friday. and they have a little khutbah, but they try to snag somebody to give the khutbah because they got no imam, you know. So, but anyway, a lot of guys would give a good khutbah. Had a few doctors that were really learned and interesting. So anyway, I said that's what kind of led me down that road. It was the daily talking, the questions I had, the answers I was getting, and then the invitation, you know. And I said, well, I'll go. Are you going to be there? And I had to have that assurance that I wasn't going to be there all by myself, you know, that I was going to have somebody there that I knew. And he was there, and I came over and sat by me and introduced me to everybody. And they were just, like I said, the welcome that I had was truly a welcome from the heart. You know, you can tell when people are being phony with you. You know what I'm saying? But these individuals, these brothers, were not being phony with me, and it was an amazing journey there, because I started going regular and every Friday, and I met a lot of individuals through that.
I haven't taken Shahada at this point. You're just going to learn.
Well, after one of the khutbahs, I wanted to become a Muslim. And I was thinking about this for a long time, months, in fact, you know. In fact, I was at one point where I thought I was one already, because, you know, I already was believing in one God, you know. So, I mean, there wasn't far off from being a Muslim, you know. So I asked one of the guys, I think it was the president of that masjid, and they really didn't have anyone that they wanted to give the shahada to me. So what had happened is one of the individuals, one of the fellas has a small hotel, and he was going to another masjid to donate some money to India for something. And he said, why don't you ride along? We're going to see the sheikh, the imam over there, and you can take your shahada over there. So that's what I did. I went with him and went to that other masjid and took my shahada. And I got a video of it. I wanted to get it on video because it's a life experience.
Wow.
You know, it's something that you're never going to, I'll never forget that shahada. And, you know, I'm more happy with my shahada and my degree from my diploma from IOU than I am with my undergraduate and my graduate degree, seminary degree. You know, I'm more happy with those two, and I feel better guided. I feel like I'm on the right trail now. You know, if I pass away today, you know, I feel like I'm not going to be in the fire. You know, well, if I am, it's not going to be for very long. You know what I'm saying?
Allah grant you long life, long healthy life, inshallah. Interesting. So before you take Shahada, you actually at some point you thought you were already a Muslim.
I thought I was. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so two things here I wanted to ask you. One that we find common is this emotional attachment with the figure of Jesus Christ, right? And a lot of Christians don't realize that we are also attached to Jesus Christ. He's our prophet. We love him. I mean, we don't have to explain this. Obviously, everybody knows this. Everybody that knows about Islam knows this. You know? But people who find that Christians, like, they don't want to let go of this thing. No, I can't betray him. He's been with me all my life. He loves me. He died for me. And the second thing is, as you said, you already believed in one God. So now, the Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what element let you let go of this idea that Jesus died for me? And the second thing is the introduction to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What have you heard before, and how were you introduced about the character of the Prophet?
Well, I was really like a blank slate. Like I said before, I knew nothing. And everything I learned, what you don't want to do as a new Muslim is you don't want to get on the internet and try to learn from sources there that you don't know if are credible or what they are, because there's a lot of websites out there that you probably don't want to follow these individuals. But so you got to be selective. And I knew I couldn't go down that road. And I needed to learn the deen. I needed to learn Islam, and I needed to learn it from somebody who could teach it to me. I met Abdul Azim, and he's got a masjid in Mineola. And like I said, he's building right now a masjid, a great big undertaking, and they need a lot of help financially. But I learned from him. Now, I think his credentials, his background is, I think he was in Medina, and I think he learned Arabic.
Medina University?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And learned Arabic. I don't think he went on to the rest of it. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on. I mean, I don't want to get him mad because maybe he did, but I don't think he did. But he learned Arabic. He's not a native speaker of Arabic. So, anyways, he comes from up your way up there in New York. I think that's where he came from and migrated down here. But yeah, he was a wonderful individual. He was well versed. He was well knowledgeable. We had a book that we studied. I talk about that book on my channel. It wasn't the best book, but it was the only book available that we thought we would go through. And that's where I learned my Islam. From him to begin with. He was my first Islamic teacher. Other than the neighbor upstairs. He didn't do a lot of teaching. He was doing examples and trying to answer my questions. But the first Islamic teacher I had was Abdul Azim, and the second one was Bilal Phillips. But when you talk about my life, you're looking at a blank slate. The average Christian or the average person in this country doesn't know anything about Islam. What they know is what they pick up off of TV, and it's not good. Maybe they got some friends that are Islamic, and maybe they know, but it's not everybody. Everybody is not in the dark like that. But I sure was, because I was secluded. You're driving a truck, you don't get around very many people, right? You're making deliveries and pickups, and this is what I did after I quit the Baptist church. I'm making a living because I'm driving a truck, and later on I'm buying a truck and I'm owning a truck. And you're on the road, and the only connection you got is the radio. You're listening, or tapes, or TV when you stop. But you're secluded. You're isolated. So there's not a lot of learning there. I hope I answered that question right.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. Here we go. The other thing was just how did you transition from believing that Jesus died for me, that emotional attachment, to letting go of it, but not really letting go of it, because when you become Muslim, you don't really let go of Jesus Christ. He's your prophet. You just understand who Jesus is. How was it, that transition? The emotional transition, if I may say, because this is how it's viewed from us when we talk to Christians. They're super attached to the idea that Jesus died for me.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. It's because that's where their trust is. They have nothing. If they lose Jesus, they have nothing. You lose your salvation. If you don't have Jesus as your Savior, you have no salvation. All right? That's what Christians, they have no salvation without Jesus. So for me, I was already questioning before, the deity of Christ, the personhood of what we would call of Christ. Christology is what the actual theological term is. I was already questioning that. So for me to transition away from that wasn't very hard, because I was falling away from that to begin with. See, as I was learning more and more. When you're in a seminary, you learn a certain curriculum. And you don't deviate from that, because they just overwhelm you with so much stuff. You don't have time for extra study on certain things. So you're learning Baptist doctrine if you're in a Baptist seminary. And that's what I was doing. I mean, I was learning Baptist doctrine, Baptist theology, Baptist apologetics. So to transition away from Jesus, it was really easy for me because, like I said, I was already disbelieving that he was God, because I couldn't find the evidence for that. So, well, alhamdulillah, you got to believe in Jesus or you can't be a Muslim.
Yeah.
You gotta believe in Jesus or you can't be a Muslim. But it's what you believe in Jesus. You can't be a Muslim and believe he's God.
Exactly.
That's obvious.
Yeah.
So because we only have one God.
We share the same belief as Jesus Christ, that there is only one God.
One God.
His God and our God is the same God. There's only one God. So actually, we share the same belief of Jesus Christ.
Well, Jesus Christ, they claim as God, so they're calling him God.
Right, but he never did. SubhanAllah.
No,
and we believe what he believed, which is that there is only one God. His God, right. Our God.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Interesting. That's amazing to say that that you really didn't have an issue transitioning from taking Jesus. Well, I mean, you were supposed to believe, I guess, he was God, but deep inside, really, that wasn't really clicking. You're saying, right? What about the crucifixion? The idea of he died for me, because there are Unitarian Christians who don't believe he's God, but somehow they believe their salvation is through his death.
Yeah, I think that's confusing. No, when I cut loose of that, when I cut loose of the three gods, and just maintain the one, I didn't have a problem with none of that, because the resurrection doesn't mean anything if Jesus isn't God, right? Doesn't mean a thing. If he's not God dying for your sins, the resurrection, the crucifixion doesn't mean a thing. Okay? So I didn't have a problem. I mean, I think if a Muslim is well taught in dawah, you could take anybody who is open and receptive to understand and receive, and you could point him towards Islam. You could train him in that direction, because the first thing you got to do is you got to cut loose with those ideas, those false ideas. You can't be believing Jesus is God. So you're going to have to study for yourself. And I always say that on my channel. Don't believe me. Don't believe a theology book, and don't believe what somebody's saying on YouTube. Study this for yourself. I've given you the tools. Apply those tools and study it for yourself. And that's the best way, because there was a saying that we had when we were in school and we were, learning to preach and stuff like that. And this saying went kind of like this. It said, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So you have to be careful of that. I can convince anybody probably in 20 minutes to do something, but I'm convincing him against his will, really, using some kind of a mind manipulation onto him. And when that's over with, he's right back to where he was, because we did it week after week in a church. We'd have altar calls, people would come up, they would get saved. A week later, you were wondering if they were Christian, and 2 weeks later, they were wondering if they were Christian, because you had convinced them. And they weren't convinced themselves in their heart. Okay? So I was convinced in my heart that Jesus wasn't God. No. That's how I was able to just cut loose and just walk away, because it's meaningless to me. He's the prophet, peace be upon him, and we believe that. We believe his teaching has been manipulated. And we believe that his teaching has been altered in various ways. It's not the same teaching. I want to give you this before we're going to go, because I know the time is getting low here. But every single time people came to Jesus and they would call him good master or whatever, and he would say, "Why call me good? You know, only one good, and that's God." But yeah, and that's what he would say. That ought to be enough for somebody right there. You know what I'm saying? Only one good, and that's God, not me. So I'm not God. That's about what he's saying in so many words. But anyway, he always pointed them back to the law, to the prophets. All right? He'd always quote the Old Testament. He'd say, "It is written," you know, and he'd point them back to the law. What should I do to inherit eternal life? You know, follow the commandments. Follow the commandments. Don't follow me. See, that's the perfect time to say that, right? If he's God, perfect time. Follow me, you know, because I'm going to be the one you want to follow to go to heaven. No, he'd say, go back and follow the law. It was works. Go back and follow the good works. Follow the law, you know. So now we have a new law. That led me to the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because we have another revelation, and it supersedes, I believe, the Christian revelation. It's later, much later. So I think it abrogates what was before. So that was one of my reasons too that I wanted to follow Islam, because, you know, when the Prophet came, Muhammad, peace be upon him, what he taught abrogated what was taught. Now, do we hold some of those things in the Old Testament? We're told to, right? We're told to the books, you know, the Torah, the Psalms, you know, the Injil, in which I don't know where the Injil is, and I don't think anybody does. I don't think it's the Injil we got, because there's too much wrong with it.
Well, we don't have one. The Injil is a singular, mufrad, singular word. What we have is a collection of books that at some point scholars decided, not scholars, some people decided to have a meeting and collect, you know, canonize them. There was also the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Nazarene, the Gospel. Yeah. There's so many Gospels, Peter, some writings, but they weren't canonized. So there was a reason why they canonized some. So we have a collection of books. But the actual Injil, what was given to Jesus, whether it's just a revelation, news that he was, good news that he was teaching, or that it was a book, Allahu Alam, we don't have that, obviously.
Yeah. And whether that was treated to a book or not, we don't know. You know,
we don't know that. Even the Bible said that. And some verses says, and Jesus went on to preach in the gospel. That gospel, whether it was just verbal or oral, whether it was written, that gospel, the Injil, is the one Injil we're talking about. Not what we have today, because this is obviously a collection of books.
Right.
Was collected, but it's interesting, yeah. SubhanAllah.
Right.
Jazakallah khair, brother Steve. I think, SubhanAllah, you know, I could go on for more and talk to you more, but it's Ramadan and short, and you got to do prayer, inshallah, and so I don't want to hold you for too long. I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you steadfast, keep you strong in deen, give you a long life, inshallah, full of iman, love, health, and halal wealth. And also want to thank everybody in the chat for tuning in. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah bless you all, everyone at home. Inshallah rahim. Any final words, Brother Steve, before we close? What do you say to any Christian watching this?
I say give it some thought with an open mind. Don't listen to what people are saying. Investigate Islam for yourself. Don't be told by anybody what it is. Investigate it. And if you want to study and you want to learn, there's places you can go. So that's my advice to Christians. Keep an open mind. Don't be so closed-minded. And don't be so racist. because there's a lot of racism in the right wing Christianity today. But anyway, brother, it was really good being on your show. I'd like to put a peg in there for my little YouTube channel.
Yes, people are asking. Actually, that was my next one. People are asking. People want to know what's your YouTube channel, please.
Yeah. Like I said, you can look at Sheikh Mustafa, but you'll go down. If you do that, you're going to go down about 100 different sheikhs, and then you're going to see me. So, but then you can click on that introduction, and then you can go into the channel. But I think probably the best way, if you want to find it fast, is to look Steve Lingus up on my Facebook, and you'll see there and where I posted the videos, because I post the videos there, you know. And I don't know if you got a link to some of them. It'd be good if maybe you could put a link for me, or try to help me out a little bit.
Absolutely. Once this is over, inshallah, I will post your YouTube link right in the description. So people.
All you got to get is one video, and then you can get on the channel. That's all you got to do.
Exactly, and people are gonna click in and we'll go right to your channel, inshallah.
Right.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khairan, brother. Always good to meet, new brothers, inshallah. Reverse to Islam. It's always a beautiful story. Looking forward, inshallah, to have some more discussion with you in the future. May Allah bless you.
Absolutely. There's so much more, you can't cover everything in an hour.
Of course.
And you can't cover a lifetime in an hour.
SubhanAllah. It is a journey indeed.
Right.
So Jazakallah khair for that. And to everyone, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Mubarak to you all.
Ramadan Mubarak.